Kristin. Hello, everyone. Welcome. While we're getting the slides ready for you all, we're excited about our presentation today. A couple quick polls for the group. How many of you practice process improvement? And feel free to raise your hand or do a little emoji. Any process improvement in your day-to-day work. All right, Catherine, thank you. Lauren. So we've got a few folks here doing process improvement. And how many of you are familiar with or practice user experience? A few more here, great. All right, well, thank you everyone. We hope to bring an introduction for you today as we cover these topics.
Really encouraging to see all of you here and that you're willing to learn more. We have several objectives to meet. We're hoping to inspire you to consider incorporating UX methods into your continuous improvement practice or just your practice in general. We want to show you where UX methods and process improvement overlap specifically. And then we want to teach you about foundational UX tool called usability testing, which many of you may already know about, or at least have heard of. And finally, we want to hope that you will connect and consider reaching out and collaborating with UX practitioners. So again, we've already introduced ourselves, but I'm from the Graduate Division of Education at UCLA, and happy to be presenting to my own family, my UCLA at UX family. And I've been really, as I said in my earlier, or being shared, I'm really committed to mentoring students and peer mentoring and just being a support. That's my passion.
A little bit about me. I'm also passionate about enabling people to meet their goals with human-centered products, driving meaningful process improvements, and collaborating with all the great people at UC, such as yourself. I currently work in UCLA's IT services. So a quick look at our time together today. First, we'll cover the fundamentals of UX design and process improvement. What do we mean when we say those terms? Creating some shared understanding of those definitions. Then we'll get into integrating UX into your workflows and connecting with customers. How can you bring that into your current processes? What does that look like when we say we want to implement that? Then we'll have a nice interactive workshop on identifying usability issues and prioritizing solutions, including some interactive usability testing. And then we'll wrap it up and have a Q&A at the end. Feel free to put questions in the chat in the meantime too, in case so you don't forget them as we go through the presentation. So first, let's create some of those shared definitions. What is user experience design? What is process improvement? And how do they overlap?
The one popular definition of user experience comes from the Nielsen-Norman Group, and they say that user experience encompasses all aspects of end user interactions with a company, its services, and its products. And for me, the word interaction is key. Our work is always looking for the connectors, touch points, pain points in places where humans or the end users connect with services and products. We think it's important today to share with you the long history of understanding humans and how they interact with products and services. UX design has been around since the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution. And one example of how UX principles were used when they were trying to increase production efficiency in mass production of assembly lines. And then in the 20th century, UX research helped reduce airplane crashes due to errors by interviewing the pilots. And our workshop will teach you the current version of how that's done. And now in the 20th century, UX is UC's own Donald Norman, who is the founding director of the UC San Diego Design Lab. He introduced user experience to a much wider audience with his books and teaching. And you may be familiar with the Design of Everyday Things book. I'm really curious if anybody's read that. It's a great launching point for learning about UX. Maybe not. Maybe not so many. I think it's a primer for a lot of beginning training. Oh, good, David.
Well, if we then take that lens and shine it on process improvement, this is a nice definition of process improvement from UC Davis, their Administrative Innovation and Technology Group. Process improvement is the proactive task of identifying, analyzing, and improving upon existing business processes within an organization for optimization and to meet new quotas or standards of quality. The key highlight we want to call out here is identify, analyze, and improve existing processes to optimize performance. Looking back at how we defined UX encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with a company, its services, and its products. Interaction is another word for processes in this context. Processes are built of interactions. When we're interacting with an organization, we're trying to get something done, whether that's answering a question, filling out a form, selecting and applying for a program, or some other task. In both definitions, we're working to improve the organization's processes. To delve a little more into that, UCLA UX describes the day-to-day of UX as UX designers work within cross-functional teams to improve touch points between the University of California and the people it serves. Again, touch points, like interactions, is kind of a substitute word for processes. UX and process improvement also work with similar teams. Internally, the cross-functional teams include developers, product managers, business analysts, QA, subject matter experts, and customers. The people we serve, those whose processes we're researching and improving, those are alumni, students, staff, faculty. How many of you serve those people with your work as well? I would expect almost everyone in the room probably serves this group. So going back to that idea of touch points and interactions as processes, I wanted to share some outcomes from projects Kristin and I have worked on in the past. Saving time filling out and reviewing forms and actions, increasing the amount of conversions in a flow, whether that's applications, travel booking, event RSVPs, student SIRs, and improving views of key information, helping veterinarians communicate their patient care plans to vet techs, helping prospective students find key program statistics, helping incoming students learn about key university resources. These are more examples to illustrate that UX designers are working to improve these interactions, touch points, or processes.
So we pointed out many ways in which these disciplines overlap, but the truth is, in order to make any improvements, we must balance customer needs or user needs, organizational goals, as well as the constraints of policy, budget, and technology. So this Venn diagram really does a great job of illustrating how the balance is achieved and where we want to create that sweet spot of success in the middle. Now you see that process improvement frameworks overlap and align with UX, and understanding where the overlaps occur could and might help you connect with your customers. I'll illustrate our framework, UX's framework, so that you can see how you might integrate UX into your workflow. So UX's framework, or one UX framework that UX uses, is commonly illustrated and called the triple diamond process. And the first diamond in this triple diamond process is the discovery stage. And this is where we expand our understanding of a process and any of its problems by conducting research, discovery research. Then we synthesize that research and identify any issues and problems that might need solving. In the second diamond of the framework is the design stage, and this is where we might explore possibilities, and then we might communicate those in a solution, which typically for us is a mock-up or a prototype. And we might call this prototype or mock-up a proof of concept. And then the third diamond of the triple diamond process is the delivery stage. This is where a solution is built and then it's validated with more summative testing.
So if we take, excuse me. If we take those 3 steps and break them down into a table showing step by step, discover, where we research to identify issues, design, solving to those identified issues, deliver, building and analyzing solutions, and then repeating that all over again, we can compare the triple diamond framework to popular process improvement frameworks. You'll see the goals of each step are similar. Here is shown PDCA, or Plan, Do, Check, Act, as well as DMAIC, Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. Each has variations on the way it describes the step. For instance, PDCA has broken down Check and Act, which is similar to Deliver and Control, and DMAIC has Define, Measure, Analyze for that first discovery phase. But the key is that both disciplines are visualizing ways to improve a process, touch point, or interaction with the organization continuously via research, prototype, building, and analyzing solutions. To execute this work, there's a whole menu of UX methodologies that can be used. There's qualitative research, quantitative research, and prototyping. Again, a number of these are very similar to process improvement methods. One that we want to focus on today in particular is this one that shows up across all 3 stages, usability testing. This is one of the greatest things you can do to improve your processes, and it's especially effective in higher education. Another way to describe this method, to use a term from the process improvement world, is a Gemba walk. This is observing how a process is done and talking with those who are doing the job. So what is usability testing? The first, watch people try to use what you're building, and then asking them to think aloud while they do it. It really is as simple as that. You can use this for all of your products and services. These are illustrations from the book Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug, which kind of the title of the book gets to what we're trying to do with all these methods for our customers.
So as we explained in the earlier slide, usability testing can be a great way to recognize problems with an application or a process. Conducting tests can reduce the risk that you are on the wrong path. It can also on the wrong path, and early testing establishes a baseline, which you can measure future success or fail rates. And usability testing is also a money saver because you can test the validity of a mock-up before expensive development even starts. And finally, through testing, you can determine which tasks are most important to your customers. So the question is, when should you conduct a usability test? And when we suggest that maybe if you are in deep process improvement, you might be when you do an 8 waste assessment, which has uncovered those wastes, or when customer complaints like support tickets, phone calls, emails have reached unacceptable levels, or maybe when you're about to launch a new feature that forces a change on users. And another good time is when you maybe have never done one before. So we'd like to try out something here. It's a short workshop, and we're calling it Identifying Usability Issues and Prioritizing Solutions. All you need we want you to not be intimidated by trying a usability test. And all you need is a little bit of time, a few volunteers, some patience, and clearly a positive attitude. So what does it take to do these tests? Basically, it can be boiled down to 4 basic steps. First, you identify the users that are using your service or your website or your product, and identify their top tasks. At that point, you can then write a script that you're going to follow during the test and build a plan for that. Then you need to find those users and recruit them. And finally, during the test, you're going to be observing them. And Anna's going to go and dig deeper into each step.
So our first task is about identifying top tasks. Let's talk about what a top task might be. These are things that are most important to your customers. What are they trying to accomplish on your service or product? Here's some examples from the perspective of prospective students on the UCLA Division of Graduate Education website. 1, apply for graduate school. This is one of the most important pieces of the website. 2 is find funding. They need funding to attend classes. Researching graduate programs, learning about commencement and other events, contacting someone for help completing a task, or requesting an exception to policies. Not only is it helpful to identify these to keep them in mind throughout how you make decisions on your product, but also it's a great task to collaborate with your team and stakeholders to get everyone aligned on what is most important on this thing we're making together. The next step is to write a script. A script is a structured guide that outlines the tasks and questions you'll ask participants during a usability test. It helps ensure consistency, efficiency, and documentation of the work being done. Test scripts generally include an introduction and reassurance that the process is being tested, not the person. All the information they give us is helpful when designing the product, making product decisions. You don't want to make the person feel like they're doing anything wrong, because when they mess up, it's actually helpful. Second, demographic questions, making sure that you have a diverse group of participants. Then your task scenarios, what are those top tasks you're asking them to complete? And finally, some post-task questions. Do you have any follow-up questions at the end once they've completed the task? The website listed here has a wonderful template you can use to get started. I have used it many times in the past. And the key about these tasks is to provide real-world scenarios. Asking to use or find a certain feature becomes more like an Easter egg hunt. Here, when you can see, view the graduate program statistics and filter to chemistry may have a much more unnatural reaction versus which takes longer to get a doctorate, art history or design and media arts. Last, you want to recruit your users. Surprisingly, you'll only need 5 people to find the majority of the usability problems on a service or application. The best results come from user testing no more than 5 people and running as many small tests as you can afford. You want to find people who represent your customers, whether that's students, prospective students, staff, a certain type of staff. However, in a pinch, testing with some people, even if it's your colleagues and coworkers, is better than testing with no people.
So how about if we try a quick usability test? In this scenario, the Division of Graduate Education wants to assess the findability of critical information. We have 2 examples today. And as the UX designer, I've created a usability test focusing on findability. And we are hoping that we can get somebody to volunteer, which would mean I give you some control to walk through a few things. Is there anybody willing to be a volunteer here? We'd like you to use the division's website. Any takers? Maybe. I can't actually see. And if not, I'm gonna volunteer, Bean.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay, I'm giving you control. And in the meantime, there we go. You should be able to. So I already know you, but thanks for volunteering. Actually, let me just grab my mouse back for a second. I just realized I need, if you don't mind, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, or do you want me to go to the site and share it? Or?
No, we're going to stay right here.
Oh,
And if I
okay.
could just, if you don't, there we go. Okay, my questions were behind it and I actually need to use them. Okay, so now you have control back. We're going to use, yeah, go to the program page and we'll start with that. And you are curious about the employment opportunities at UCLA. Where might you go to find that?
Okay, like employment in grad division, I assume,
Or as a grad student.
as a grad. Okay. I guess I'd go down should I stay here and click on something that I could see right now?
Sure, sure.
Okay, I would maybe do
Are you moving around? I
funding.
just realized I can't see your mouse moving. Okay, there we go. There you go. Now I can see.
Okay. Oh, maybe funding.
Try search. Try search.
Okay.
Search for employment and see what it does.
So one of the things that is very hard to do, and it's a perfect learning opportunity, is that as a person conducting the test, we usually don't get involved with guiding them. And many people do go to search, and that is something we rely on. But I'm guessing that Bean wasn't initially going to do that. So you had a hunch here?
Yeah. So oh, okay. I've never interacted this way. Okay, so it was in funding either way, looks like.
Sounds good. I'm going to ask you, as a student, as a prospective student, you're curious about going to grad school at UCLA. You'd like to get a tour of campus. Where would you find that?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I guess there's always search of doing a tour. Okay.
Fantastic. All right, we just completed a very short demo on looking at findability on a website. I'm going to take control back, Bean.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was, sorry, I'm going to grab and I'm going to turn off your remote control. There we go.
I've never used that feature in Zoom either. So
yeah. So some of the things that we're done with our tasks, and again, thank you. If you were a you know, having somebody talk out loud while they're doing the test. This is such an abridged version of it, but um, most of those were pretty difficult. And we did learn that there's some findability issues with our site, as I think we found. You went to the search and found it right away, but in terms of finding it on the tabs, it was quite difficult for you. And we know that we know one of the things about building a script is knowing where the success path is. And you pointed it out that it's under funding and, where somebody should end up. Sometimes people don't end up, where they can't find the tour or they can't find jobs. And so we would call that a fail. And then, of course, we need to work on how to change the navigation in order for somebody to get there. And another thing about this process is that generally it's one-on-one, right? And there might be people observing in the background, or in the case of other jobs I've had, we've piped it into a room where all of my engineers or a whole team of people is watching it so that they can be familiar with some of the difficulties on the project that we're working with. And if somebody's having difficulties, it's actually kind of hard, because if you're in that room, you can sometimes hear the groans from people experiencing how, for the first time, the team is seeing how difficult something is to do. Anna, I know you would have been our note taker. Were there some things that you wanted to share?
One thing I observed was, even though you went to the funding page, that employment tab on the secondary navigation wasn't a quick enough find related to the task events, so that the search wasn't an easier thing versus the navigation. So as putting on my product hat, I would think about prioritizing how the visual of the second navigation looks and how that text stands out.
Okay, I'm going to move on to our another thing that I didn't mention is that a lot of times in the note takers in either in another room, or if it's virtually, maybe it's on a Miro board, people are taking actual post-it notes virtually, or actual post-it notes. And those can be a great tool, as we'll show in a few slides ahead, to start assessing what's gone on with all the different questions that you've had. Sorry, I moved it and I didn't switch over. There we go.
All right. Well, the benefits from usability testing are huge. I can tell you, I've always had surprises from usability testing, as have our stakeholders. And this includes users not being able to find a new feature being released. Thank goodness that was tested. Otherwise, this whole new feature would have been built and people wouldn't have even found it on the website. You'll learn that digital products and services are not precious reading material. People don't treat them that way. They're just trying to get something done, whatever that process may be. So while on the team, everyone is thinking product brochure, let's spend a lot of time on this text and this layout, the user's reality is much closer to a billboard going by at 60 miles an hour. Now, when you do a full usability test, you'll have discovered a list of issues with your digital products and services. What do you do with this list? Where do you begin to address them? To borrow another key process improvement method, we need to prioritize them. So first, you want to get all your issues listed in one place. From there, it's a number of prioritization methods that could be used. I'm going to describe the one shown here that I like to use, but use what's best for you and your organization. In this method, the team observes what happens, and in each test, writes their top 1 to 3 issues per session onto a sticky note using that note-taking method Kristin was talking about. Then, as a group, all together in the same room, we'll hold a debriefing session. So everyone will get together and put their sticky notes on the whiteboard according to these categories. The first category on the left is our high impact problems, things that may have prevented a user from completing a task. The second one is erroneous actions that the participant recognized need to be undone. Those are of medium impact for 2 or more testers, or low impact for 4 or more of your testers, all the way down to that fourth one in green, low impact issues that affected 1 tester. These are probably relatively low priority to fix. Once those are all up on the board, it's a great team exercise to talk through them all together, cluster similar issues, and you'll see here on the left, there's one particular issue that had 5 stickies kind of horizontally across, so pretty much everyone on the team called this one out as something they were concerned about. So this is a great way to start thinking about how you can prioritize those things you find and know which ones to address first. The goal is eliminating any of those major hurdles and completing key tasks on your digital products and services. So we're already reaching the end of our time together here today. Address the disconnect from your customer base by utilizing user experience across all phases of your workflows. We've shared some introductory information today and delved into that one method, usability testing, but this is a deep topic with much to be explored. There's jobs that focus in on many of these techniques and methodologies, so there really is a lot that you can zoom in on beyond the surface level. And also, just like process improvement, bring in user experience tools and practices into your projects early to make a big impact, whether that's prioritizing things on the roadmap, working with UX to understand what challenges are occurring in your product to prioritize those things, or implementing fixes to something that's about to launch. And as you work with your UX team or find other people doing this, you'll find you will be able to speak their language.
So we hope that you see how UX and process improvement do go hand in hand. And we hope that you keep the conversation going. Join all of us on the UC Communities of Practice, UC Tech, UC UX channels, and which is called UX and/or Design. I think many of you are already on there. And you can also join our mailing list at UC UX. And thank you very much for spending time with us today. And we did leave some time for questions, or we can just move into just general questions.